I feel like part of making things and being creative and executing plans is you discover things about yourself you might not ever otherwise discover. I mean, making is a practice of self-exploration, ultimately. And what I've discovered in recent projects is that
You know what? I'll just say this. Is the grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned?
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're having a really good day so far. If you're new here, my name's Taylor. I come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland, and here on my YouTube channel, I feature content that is generally focused on knitting and spinning. In this week's episode of what I call the Thread to Mine podcast, I'm going to sit down and share with you what I've been thinking about making. I don't know, we'll see. I've not been making a lot. I haven't been recording a lot. In fact, I haven't sat down to record in quite a while. And I don't know that I know how anymore because there's just been a lot going on that has nothing to do with knitting or crochet. So trying to keep up with everything, and the things that fall to the very back end of my priorities is being creative, which is not ideal. I think it helps the world when we all have the capacity to be creative, but I have been lacking in that lately. And I think that when you're starting a new project or beginning a new journey, whatever it might be, it requires a fair amount of faith and optimism that everything will be okay, that as long as you just focus and work hard, that you will accomplish your goal. And that's just not how I feel right now. I should probably unplug more than I do because I'm highly distracted by being chronically online. If I'm not consuming media like news and commentary on the news, I'm watching entertainment that is manufactured by people who are chronically online. So it's like I never get away from being chronically online. I'm trying to consume content about knitting online to stay motivated and inspired to create my own, but I'm not inspired by it. In fact, more than anything, I feel like my mind is only primed to pick up on things I don't like. Like I'm so angry and sad in my own life that all I know how to think is through the lens of anger and sadness. I'm laughing because it's weird when you say it out loud that way, but I've just been feeling a deep sense of grief. And it is what it is. I think that more people should talk about grief. I've been grieving daily. I've been grieving the last several months, my dad passing away, which has not always been at the forefront of my mind, honestly. But I think that when you are grieving, it comes and it goes. So anyway, I'm paying a lot of attention to current events in the world. I'm a witness to so much suffering, and I take it in, and I just feel a deep sense of sadness. And from that place, I begin to feel a deep sense of anger. And from that place, I begin to feel a deep sense of resentment. And that's how I've been feeling the last several weeks. I've been trying to like pull myself up from my own bootstraps and get out of it, but it just does not subside. And that's how I've been. I started a new job 8 weeks ago. I very much like it. It is exhausting, though, to learn so much new information week after week after week. More things are becoming familiar, so that is good. It's definitely not an exhausting job. Like, there's so much room for me to be patient with myself and learn at my own pace, which is good. I don't feel like I've been thrown into the deep end by any means, but there's a lot to learn about the organization specifically. It's not like you can go to school and know everything you need to know for the occupation. It's like you have to be a part of the organization long enough to understand how it all functions. So that's all new and exciting, and I've been enjoying it. And I like my new routines. I get to work from home 3 days a week, so I don't have to drive my car like an hour a day, 5 days a week. I don't even drive to work. I take a shuttle, and that is fun too, because I have had the chance to crochet a little bit in the early mornings. And Brian will always walk with me and the dog to the shuttle stop. It's very close to my house. And so a couple days a week we get an early walk in, and I feel more at home in Baltimore City now than I did before, because I used to drive into the county, which is what we call it here in Baltimore. It's the county, Baltimore County, and it's just different there. And being part of Baltimore City day and night, it's like, I like that more. It's more suited for me. So there's that. I've not been making a lot because I have a lot of doubt. A ton of doubt. Like, I don't know that I can mattress stitch my sleeves together. Because I just haven't if I've ever mattress stitched, it's been a very long time. I don't know that I've ever done it. So I have to look up how to mattress stitch the sleeves of my sweater. It would probably take 15 minutes and I'd be done. Except for the pockets. I need to cast on and knit the pockets. This project is so close to being finished, yet requires a skill set I've never accomplished yet. And so that's why it's still in the basket. I don't think I've touched this in over 2 weeks, which is embarrassing. And, let me go get it. I have been knitting on my, I stopped mid-row. It's okay, this is a very long cable. But I have been knitting on my Chained Oblivion. This is the pattern by Kelcey Garner. And we are doing a knit along this month, although I'm not gonna, I think it's over. I think the knit along is over. I've been knitting on this lately. You can see there's my progress keeper there that has marked, I think the last time I showed you where I was. So I worked a few inches on this, and it's a lovely pattern. Still enjoying it. I cannot wait to have this to wear, but at the same time, I'm taking it quite slow. I am not rushing this process for some reason, although I probably could work on it a little bit more. This is my current knitting project holder. It has my earbuds, my hand sanitizer, and my lip gloss. And it holds 2 skeins of yarn perfectly. So I love that for me. One of the best things about this is it has these little wooden handles, so I can hold my knitting on my forearm, and it's just like very easy to hold over any type of jacket or anything. And this is like one of the best walking project holders. Last weekend, Brian and I went on a weekend trip. Flew out. We drove out to Paw Paw, West Virginia, and we hiked all day Saturday, and we drove home Sunday, and it was quite nice. We just rented a little cabin for his birthday to celebrate his birth, and that was fun. I've also been crocheting. These are a few of my more recent granny squares for my granny square project. Long ago now, it seems, and actually much longer than that, I discovered and saved a crochet cardigan pattern that is free online. It's called the Ariana cardigan, and it is worked in a worsted weight yarn, which is not this. These are crocheted from some of my 2-ply jumper weight Shetland wool stash. I've been keeping this project here in my cute little train case. This is my newest train case in my collection of train cases. I don't know if you know, I do collect train cases, and it's one of my favorite project bags. It's one of my favorite containers for a project because everything is safe and sound. And I have in the corner a stack of my granny squares, and I can kind of, it's not super organized right now, but I can organize all of my little skeins of wool, and so that I do enjoy. So this is easy to pick up and carry around the house, and I tried to like pull all of my little skeins out and assemble all of my configurations of color, and then I will work one after the next and then throw each of the balls back in the thing. So I just kind of work through all my different colors all at once, if that means anything. I don't know. So I've been crocheting here and there, not a lot, obviously. I've not been making a lot of progress, but I have decided, if I haven't mentioned this yet, I'm not going to knit the crochet. I'm not going to crochet the Ariana cardigan. Instead, I'm going to create a V-neck. And one of the things that I liked about the Ariana cardigan when I saw it is that it's not a granny square construction where the squares are positioned as squares. They are assembled in diagonal squares. So I just really like those diamonds, and I thought it would make a really nice V-neck. So I'm going to assemble mine with that construction and not make it an open front garment, but instead just a pullover. And I haven't really even referenced the Ariana instructions, except for that my squares, although crocheted in a tighter gauge with finer yarn, they also measure, like the pattern, 5 inches from corner across the center to the opposite corner. But, and someone pointed out this to me in the comments, and I am insanely grateful. My gauge of each of my rows is smaller than the pattern. So when I crochet the 2 rows to assemble all of my squares, I'm using like a sandy beige color yarn. So when I assemble all of my granny squares, the ultimate garment is not going to be as large, or the size, the finished measurements of my finished garment are not going to be the same as hers. So I need to just calculate that and make sure that I have the number of squares I want, and maybe I want to incorporate more squares. So I need to test out the shape, and ultimately I'm kind of working an entirely different garment. So then I question, like, do I want to make these instructions available somehow? Like, I'm barely referencing the pattern to begin with, and there are so many granny square projects out there. Someone has probably already written this pattern and I just don't know it yet. So if you know better than I do already on that subject, feel free to inform us in the comments. But otherwise, I'm just going to continue to work my granny squares, and then ultimately I will assemble them in a manner I find pleasing. And then if you're interested, maybe I will compile that information into a project or something, or a pattern. I don't know. It's been a while since I've written a crochet pattern, but I'm definitely making a pullover, and I do want the finishing touches of it, the cuffs, the collar, and the bottom band. I do want them to be knit. So it'll be a combination of knit and crochet. So this is my fun playtime, not so serious project that I don't have to think about, or at least don't have to think intelligently about. I just find colors, match them, and I do the simplest thing, which is crochet a granny square. And if you're interested, I do have a video on my YouTube channel about how I crochet my granny square, because I feel like my method is my favorite approach, and I weave in my ends as I go, so I don't have tons of ends to weave in, but this is where I'm keeping it. And those are the 3 projects I'm working on at the moment. Or not working on. I do have something here. I had talked in the recent past about wanting to rip this out, and I have second thoughts about that, because I just really like it. I really like the idea of it. And I think that the Velocore shirt that I had previously knit that I just wasn't thinking through, and I was playing a dangerous game of yarn chicken, I think that that project and wrapping that up and just the disappointment of it all, like the time it took to knit that fabric and the fact that it doesn't even fit. It's my fault. It's not the pattern, by the way. It's just my execution of the pattern. I didn't split for the armholes soon enough. I should have done it an inch sooner, and then so I couldn't make it an inch longer because I didn't have the yarn. So the upper arms are tight and they're unfinished because I ran out of yarn. So it's just a huge disappointment. I think I might even stitch that garment into a pillow cover because I never want to wear it. If I am wearing it, I have to hide it under a blazer, and I don't know, we'll see. I'll give it a few more months. But after I finished that piece, I thought more about this piece and how I was afraid I would run out of yarn just the same. And I think I need to revisit the math and verify that before I quit. I gave up on this because the next step to assembling the front and the back is picking up stitches along the side, and then, which one side is easy because it's stockinette, but then this side is like the selvage side, so it's a little more complicated and fiddly. And then after you get all those stitches on your needles, which is a pain, and I've done it and then I ripped it out because I didn't think my stitch count was right, but after you do that, then I think you have to do another welt, which means you have to pick up more stitches and knit into those. So it's just tedious. I thought to myself, you don't have to knit a welt if you don't want to, TAYLOREOWEN. Just do what you feel like doing. Improvise if you must. And so I thought I just might do that. I just might modify the pattern to have something at the end of the day instead of nothing. I don't know. I feel like part of making things and being creative and executing plans is you discover things about yourself you might not ever otherwise discover. I mean, making is a practice of self-exploration, ultimately. And what I've discovered in recent projects is that I don't like it when I convince myself of things that are not true, which is I'll have enough yarn and I don't. I don't like the disappointment of spending so much time and energy on something that doesn't pan out. I don't like it when I realize I dropped half the yarn 2 inches down and I've already bound off. It's like there's already a defect in my fabric right here and I can't fix it. Maybe I'll duplicate stitch that one stitch there. Or pull it to the back maybe? I don't know. That's annoying. There's that. There's always something wrong when you're making something too. And it's like, if you don't handle imperfection well, making things through knitting is gonna either teach you to be comfortable with it or it'll make you extraordinarily uncomfortable a lot. So it's a good practice for someone like me to pick up and stay consistent with, because you will forever be challenged. So I'm thinking that it might be in my best interest to continue this project. I know that I have, at the minimum, and I might even have another skein I've forgotten somewhere in a drawer, but I have at least 100 more grams. I think that I can get this done. I think I can at least knit the two sides and a little bit of a sleeve, and hopefully even the bottom portion. I was thinking I might be able to knit it a little bit lower potentially, so that, I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna try to pick this up and salvage this project instead of give up on it. I know I settled on giving up on it and I don't think I'm ready to. I think I'm going to keep at it and see what happens. So maybe after I'm done editing today's video and get this online, I will work on that. And then another project I would like to cast on is like a t-shirt design, something that I can wear in the spring. And I think because I don't have a ton of, I certainly don't have enough yarn to knit a sweater or anything but the smallest of maybe cardigan sweater. Anyway, I know that I have enough yardage between the silk mohair and single fingering weight wool to knit a small shirt. So I would like to knit that. And so I'm going to disassemble this shawl. Gorgeous shawl. I just, again, with the imperfection thing, I know I could just fix the shawl and make it more wearable, but I think I would rather make something else. So instead of unraveling the two strands held together, my plan is to just pick back the lace border, remove that, and then get these live stitches available to just knit off of. So I will basically knit this shawl directly into a new project. Because it is two strands held together and they're both quite fine, I feel like that would be the best approach. So I think that would be nice to have. I'm just not sure what. I think I would like it to be lightweight, like light and airy, and with sleeves so that I can wear it into the office without needing to wear something over it like a blazer. So that's another plan that I have. And that's that. I wonder how you've been lately, what you've been working on. I've been watching a lot of knitting channels lately. I was watching quite a few videos of, what is her channel? I cannot think of her first name. I don't know. We'll talk about it in a future video because clearly I'm not prepared to discuss what I've been watching online. I think that it's time now that we venture outside. I have made, I want to say a lot of progress, but that's not the word. I have done a lot of work in the garden this season already. I've started a lot of plants and there's not much to show there except for a couple trays. But I'm gonna go show you what I've been working on in my backyard garden. I feel like I owe you a Star Baby Moonchild cameo. She sleeps a lot throughout every day. She is always sleeping. And because she's pretty much deaf, she doesn't hear me start my podcast recording anymore and come to join us because she can't hear me. She just is glued to me in the evening hours. And then at nighttime when it's dark, I don't think she can really see that well. and because she can't hear, I think she feels a bit vulnerable. And so she becomes extraordinarily loud and demanding. And I mean, pretty much demands that I hold her in my arms at night when I sleep. So if I ever wake up and turn on my other side, that is not okay with her. And she will wake me up every night in the middle of the night and tell me something. I don't know what, but it's kind of exhausting right now. I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of her special needs, honestly. It's just, I am generally a tired person these days because of her, and she just gets to sleep all day. So anyway, here's Star Baby for ya. We'll go outside to the garden. It smells of daffodils, which is nice. So weeks ago, I turned my compost bin, which is over there, and I filled this box and these boxes full of compost. And not all of them, well, actually a couple of them, but anyway, this box had a ton of seedlings, and I'm not sure yet what they are. I think that they're tomatoes, because if you look very, very closely, there are tiny, tiny, tiny hairs on the stem. But Brian says that they look smooth and that they're not tomatoes. And I think they are tomatoes, but we'll find out at least in a couple weeks' time. So, not sure. But one thing I did do today is I took all my random little containers and I potted up a bunch of these seedlings that came out of the compost. So we'll see what they are soon, and I'll have a bunch to share. He thinks they might be peppers. I think that they're tomatoes. We don't know, but I have 39 of them to give away or to plant randomly. This box has all my strawberries coming back from winter, and in the back row, which I dug out, were the echinacea I had propagated and kept over winter. And we'll talk about the rest in a minute. I still have a few echinacea in this box here. I think this one will come back, but there's at least 1, 2 here. And maybe I'll leave them there, maybe I won't. But I moved the others into this patch here. So this is where the gutter empties. And I don't know, maybe I should put some stones down or something to prevent it from getting full of mulch, but I think you can see them. I planted a patch of echinacea in the middle, in the front here. I'm keeping it empty because I might put some annuals. I just don't know what. And I used to have raspberries growing in this area, but my peach tree has grown large enough that now it extends kind of over into that side of the yard. So I decided I would move any raspberries I had left in the ground over here, which was very few. I dug them up and I moved them into this berry patch. So I have quite a few new canes for this season. I cut back almost all of the old canes to encourage new growth, and I kept the few canes that had fresh growth on them. So we'll see if we get more new canes. I think we might, but still too soon to tell, really. I also have here a bleeding heart that I picked up in the fall season, and I have a little baby yarrow over here which survived. I used to have yarrow in this part of the garden. Oh, it looks like there's more than a few little baby yarrows, so that's exciting. I think I see a fourth one in there. Oh yeah, there's plenty of little yarrow bushes, so maybe I'll have more yarrow in the summer. Here's my original blackberry cane, and I don't know, maybe I should cut more of this back, but I'm gonna just let this grow here. I'm not gonna try to move it again and again. I'm just gonna let more new blackberry canes pop up, and then the black raspberry canes are taking over this corner of the garden. You can see our pawpaw tree has, I don't know if my camera is capable of focusing on these flowers, but there are flowers all over our pawpaws, and we have 3 pawpaw trees, so we'll definitely get more than a couple fruits this year. And what else? Oh, I bought a few weeks ago, I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago now, I bought a new blackberry case. I wanted blackberries to grow onto this trellis. I thought that might be a good use of this space because it is a little bit shady. And I bought a couple bags of mulch. I like the pine bark mulch because it stays intact a bit longer than the rest. And they were bigger chunks than last fall. Maybe they just hadn't broken down yet the way that they did for the full growing season. So I kind of dug out a little bit of a trench, and you can see I mulched just along the concrete. And that's because, why is that? Because a lot of water collects there already, and I thought if I had more wood chips in that area specifically, it would hold more water. So that's why you see that. And I might go get more mulch, but I don't know if it's worth buying, especially because I'm due to turn my compost bin again. I'll dump my compost and I will put it here because this is my compost dumping pile. And then when I need compost, like all of these containers here that you see, which I haven't talked about yet, but these are all my own homegrown compost and a little bit of leaf mulch to keep them from drying out. But these containers here are about 80 different, oh, this is part of my compost bin, I think. Anyway, those rats are chewing holes in my bin. Rats or squirrels, I don't know which, but you can see there's holes in it now. I've had these compost bins for quite a while, so they've held up for a fair amount of time, but yeah, not worth replacing, honestly. They work the same. But these are hellebore seedlings, and if you don't know, hellebores, they are one of my favorite plants. They grow these big seed pods, and before you know it, they just burst open and they spread all these tiny, shiny black seeds, and then they overwinter, and then in the spring they all pop up. And you can see some like here, and here, and here. I kept some in the ground, and I moved a few like out and about in other areas to see if they will carry on in the garden. You can see there and there. But hellebores are just such a lovely flower. You can always like cut the blooms and put them in a bowl of water so that they face upright. Mostly you can't see them. But they're one of the earliest flowers to bloom in the spring, even before the daffodils. But what was I talking about? Oh, there was an extra cane coming up in my my blackberry planter that I bought, so I put that over here. We'll see if it'll come up with more. Anyway, my heuchera are heuchering. I do need to clean them up a tiny bit still. Try not to leave too many like dead or dying leaves. I feel like the more you pick off, the more fresh growth you encourage. So I try to remove all of the really spent leaves. I should probably wear gloves to dig in there. I'm not sure if there's spiders or something. But anyway, These are one of my favorite heucheras. I just think they're so pretty. And I forget what these are called. Coral bells. That's that. I had a third and I stepped on it last season and it died. Looks like I have a little echinacea here. I can tell by the leaves. I have even more bulbs to plant. These were all in the front yard garden and I got sick of watching them flop over in the shade, so I moved them to an area that gets a little more sun. I have so much cleaning up to do. That is a filthy dirty cat water bowl. And I've been keeping this leaf bag, you know, like a lawn debris bag, on the concrete all winter because I feel like it's less cold for them to stand on. That's a cat house, of course, and then I just got done mulching this morning. So I had planted up 40 of these hellebores a couple weeks ago, and then there were so many more seedlings, I decided to pot up 40 more. I'm not sure if they're all gonna make it. I think eventually I will just start giving them away. I have at least one neighbor who I know would really appreciate some hellebore seedlings, and again, we don't know what these are, but I think that they're tomatoes, so we'll see. But I got a couple strawberries last year. I think I'm gonna get a few more this year. This, I hope it's growing back. It looks like it has some fresh growth on it. But I have, oh, this is coming back. What do we have here? This is my butterfly bush. And I have a pink echinacea there. And I think I'm gonna keep this tiny cat house here. I think I'm gonna keep this in the yard and maybe put it over here. I don't know, it's time to springify my backyard garden. So I need to get out my leaf blower. I think I'm gonna suck up all of these leaves here that have accumulated over the winter and just try to keep it really clean and tidy, and then I will suck up these areas here where all the rocks are. My neighbor had to exit his house, so I just stopped recording for a second. I don't know what I was saying, but I do want to clean up the leaves, clean up the trash. I should show you my seedlings. So I put a couple other hellebore seedlings here and there. They're a little bit buried in the leaf mulch. Actually, that's not one. I have a hosta here. Ooh, that looks like it might be a squash or a pumpkin. I know I have a couple over here too. So I'm trying to just move hellebore seedlings wherever I can, give them a chance of growing in different areas. But I have a very long, like 5-foot row of, I think these are some kind of snap pea. I don't know if they're sugar snap peas or if you would call them that. I've purchased so many snap peas and they never really, actually, you know, these have been here since we moved in. They're an iris. They don't really flower a lot. I try to not let the flowers bloom because they're pretty toxic to cats. Like the pollen is very toxic, so I don't remove them because they're pretty, but I don't encourage them to grow. Oh, I have a few more hostas here coming up. They look so cool when they come up out of the ground. So I have a hosta here, here, and here. And I have my 2 bleeding hearts. I know I pointed one out, but I have one on each side of that bird bath. And I do need to, this bird bath has started tilting to one side. I need to fix that before it gets so grown up around there that I can't get in the back of it. But I'm seeing a couple little weeds. I want to pick them while they're little. way, what do you think? Oh, my grass. I don't know if you remember, but it was so dry this summer, and we didn't have a sprinkler. I have a sprinkler now. I just hook it up to my hose and put it in the middle of the yard, and it works great. But yeah, my grass fried, and we have very hard clay soil. So I asked Brian to make me a contraption to sift my compost. So I sifted my compost. You can see all the eggshells from the compost bin. I sifted my compost, and I spread about an inch of compost along the entire grass, because it was all clay and it looked terrible. It was like cracked and very, very dry. And I spread compost before the winter, in the fall. And then I did try to spread grass seed, but I didn't really water it in, and it was still freezing at night, so I couldn't turn on the hose. I probably should have just waited till the spring, but I thought if I water it later, it'll probably just grow in anyway. I don't know, whatever. I need to cut the grass. I stepped on it quite a bit, and now it's not standing up anymore, but I need to give it a little bit of a trim, which will also proliferate the growth. And I think by the end of summer, by the end of the spring maybe, if I'm optimistic, I will have a full little lawn of grass again. I want to believe. It's never been this bad, but it could be worse. It was worse at the end of the summer last year, so I'm excited to see any grass growing. And I need to put my canes back in place to support the red raspberries. And I do want to pressure wash, but that's not happening right now anyway. I need to like sweep up and get things clean. I might reorganize where my planters live. I have quite a few. I have like 2 or 3 more pots of this size, which is not big enough, really. It's kind of like the worst size, honestly, because it's too big for indoor, and it's not big enough to really survive the day in the hot summer outdoor. So I'm not sure what to do with those containers. But I have a lot of cleaning up to do out here. And here is back to the seedlings. Here's my tray of cold, loving things. It's not really cold. We're having a really nice day today. It's almost 80 degrees. But here we have 3 varieties. We have southern collard greens. Those are the blue hue ones. I think it's just these two trays of 4. And then I have a giant variety of kale that grow mega huge leaves. And then I have that, I don't know the name of it, but it's an Italian variety. It's called Dino Kale. And I don't have any of the curly kale, like the purple Russian kale. Although I think I might have a seed pack. I just haven't planted any. Maybe I'll do that in the fall. But my goal, and I have cilantro, and I have onions. These are like a spring onion variety, and then these are a round onion. And then I wasn't sure if I should leave them in little bunches or if I should separate them out. So I did a little bit of both. I think I had a second one of these, and then I separated them out into their own cells. So it's kind of just an experiment. I've never grown onions before successfully, so it's trial and error over here. But I have a few beets. I'm a little late to the beet game. And then I just started some chives a little later than everything else too. So those are like baby sprouts. And then my chives from last season are coming back too. They're doing much better. So hopefully we'll have lots of chives this season. I need to turn my compost again. I just turned it a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it was at the highest ideal temperature, and it's not even warm at this point now. It's like 70 degrees tops. So I need to get this hot again. I think I'm going to start with cleaning up the leaves and all the debris, and then maybe turning that compost bin. And also, I need to get out my stick shredder, and I need to shred all of these sticks, because this is the bulk of, well, some of them are raspberries, but most of this are my peach trimmings. I aggressively trim my peach tree every year, as one should. Peaches are not just pretty little native plants that don't need, even they're domesticated. You need to train them like a dog. You don't just live with wild peaches, you have domesticated peaches. Wow, these flowers have opened like all day today. These are like brand new open flowers. Very cool. But I'm training this one here. If I had been smarter, I would have trained these branches at a younger age to be even more open, but I don't know, I just didn't have the things I needed at the time. But I am training this branch to just sit a little lower so that it's on our side of the fence and not in Charlotte's yard. I'm going to go inside, drink some water, maybe have a snack, and I need to charge my phone. Most of these seed starting examples have been failures. They are my oldest seeds. So I just planted a ton of them and nothing came up, but for a few radishes and a couple calendula. And these are shishitos. So these are just here because I took them out of the other tray I brought outside. They're not ready to go outside yet. It's like my storage shelf. I have more seedlings. So there's my tomatoes. I have 3 varieties of cherry tomatoes. I grow cherry tomatoes because we don't have a lot of sun, and larger tomatoes I think take more energy to grow than smaller ones, at least from the sun. And then here I have all of my basil that I just started a couple days ago, and I have about 12 cucumber plants I hope to grow. Not that I have room for 12 cucumbers, but I'm gonna try. And what do we, oh, these are my newest zinnias. So I have a tray of zinnias in 2 varieties. Most of these are mustard greens. They are about 2/3 of this, and then I have some lettuce and jalapenos in the back there. That is it for this week's episode of the Thread to Mend podcast. If you made it this far into this week's video, let me know below with the plant emoji, whichever one you prefer. And I want to thank you so much for being here. If you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry and Instagram. You can find me over on TikTok as Taylor Knits. I never really opened TikTok anymore, but I'm also on Blue Sky. I think it's Taylor E. Owen dot whatever the Blue Sky thing is. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and that you take care.
What does it mean to be on the right side of history? Is there a statute of limitations on injustice? And is it ever too late to take a stance? In 2023, award-winning novelist and journalist Omar Alakad published this tweet about the destruction in Gaza. Quote, "One day, when it's safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this." Those 180 characters pack a lot of meaning that resonated with the 10+ million people who viewed that tweet, meaning that led Alakad to write an entire book titled "One Day, Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This." This is his first work of non-fiction, and his debut novel, American War, was named by the BBC as one of 100 novels that shaped our world. Omar joins me now from London. Thank you so much for coming on Mary Unfiltered. Congratulations on the book. I wish you didn't have to write it, but it's a powerful book. It's a emotional book, and it's an important book. And I just want to start with what it is, Omar, but also what it isn't. You write that this is not an account of that carnage that we saw in Gaza. You say that you're not trying to change anyone's mind with this book. So what impact do you think it'll have? Do you want it to have? What should readers leave with?
There's a reason I sound the way I do. I often talk about this idea that if I'd called you up on the phone and said my name was John Smith, you'd probably believe me because I have this accent and I'm sort of attuned to the West in a particular way. And I think that has been true for essentially my entire life. But over the last year and a half, I felt a kind of severance from everything that I had oriented myself towards. Because at the end of the day, I'm killing those kids. It's my tax money that is paying for the bombs being dropped on them. And so the book, I think, is in part reckoning with that and what it means to live in the West as someone with my name, with my background, etc., but just living in the West in general and knowing that there exists this kind of chasm between the performance of virtue and the pragmatic reality.
And just to go back to that original tweet that inspired the title of the book, not the book itself, was it frustration with the patent dishonesty or the obvious hypocrisy of the people in power that made you write that down? One day everyone will have always been against this. I mean, today, almost everyone in public life is against the Iraq war, but they weren't back in 2003. I'm old enough to remember that.
Look, one way or another, I'm going to be proven right or wrong. And it doesn't much matter to me. The attempt wasn't some kind of prediction. I think what I was trying to get at is that I think there's a lot of people who have become very well versed in looking away and keeping their head down and then checking every once in a while to see what the prevailing opinion is. And I don't think that what we've seen, the horror we've seen over the last year and a half, is any different from that. I think it's going to be subject to the same kind of after-the-fact self-preservation mode of ideology. I think for me, and again, I'm saying this as somebody who has the privilege of living on the launching end of the missiles. You know, I live within the heart of the most powerful empire to have ever existed. I became accustomed, for example, and conditioned to the fact that when I open up my social media feeds, and granted, I'm not really on social media anymore, but if I saw a picture of a smiling Palestinian kid, it was probably because that kid had just been killed.
Yeah.
And I think operating under the systems of power that we have generally relies in large extent on looking away. And this was much, much more difficult to look away from.
One sentence that stood out for me in your book was when you say the starting point of history can always be shifted, such that one side is always instigating, the other always justified in response. I think Palestinians, it's fair to say, are a prime example of how this can be weaponized against an entire population, an entire place, given what's happened there and the reasoning behind it. But can people still claim that they didn't know how bad it was? Can they switch sides so late in the name of ignorance, do you think, when it comes to Gaza?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And my immediate answer is, from my perspective, I don't care. And I don't mean that as to be dismissive of your question. The exact opposite is true. I think it's a fascinating question precisely because I don't care. There are going to be people who try to do this. Yeah. It is very difficult to find somebody who was on board with apartheid in South Africa. Everyone's against it in hindsight. That avenue has always been available, and I think it will be in this case. But my central concern isn't the rehabilitation of anyone's reputation, my own included. I mean, we're all going to be judged for what we did or didn't do in this moment. My central concern is whatever the hell it takes to stop an ongoing slaughter and occupation and 3/4 of a century long injustice from continuing.
Gaza's genocide, Omar, for many people, seems to have blurred the line between their perceptions of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party here in the US. You being one of those people write, quote, as much as the mainstream liberal parties might be far less deranged and cruel than their right-wing opponents on virtually every policy issue, it is the case of Palestinian suffering, or more precisely, utter indifference to it, where the two sides seem to be most in agreement. Why do you think that is? And how do you think people who are progressive on every issue except Palestine, the PEPs, how do you think they justify the Palestine exception in their own minds, to their own consciences, as Palestinians die in their tens of thousands?
I mean, I've had some variant of this conversation many times over the last 15 months. I mean, I live in Portland. I'm around a lot of liberals. I'm around an overwhelming sort of ideology that is in that sphere, one way or another. And I think for me, one of the things that I've seen over and over again in the last few weeks is the same person who previously was telling me that I had to vote Democrat at all costs. I had to vote Democrat because the alternative was so much worse. And I understand that the alternative is worse on so many issues. It's not like I wasn't around for the last Trump administration. I get it. But that same person who appealed to our shared solidarity in trying to fix all of these things now turn around and express almost a sense of glee at every act of cruelty now that it's happening under a Republican administration. You didn't vote for the Democrats. Well, now you deserve the deportations, and now all of the carnage in Gaza is on you. That tells me two things, right? The first thing it tells me is that you were never my ally. There was never solidarity there. We just had a temporary adjacency of self-interest, maybe, right? And so I know that going forward. The second thing it tells me is that if we are operating in the arena of consequences, and I don't think that the protest vote against the genocide in Gaza would have turned the election. I doubt it in the first place, but let's assume that it could. If consequences are going to be applied that way to the electorate, surely that's a two-way street, right? Surely sending Bill Clinton to Michigan to tell Arabs how good this all is as a campaign strategy must also come with some kind of consequences, right? And so, there's no universe in which I'm ever voting for the Republican Party. It's a deranged cult, and I want nothing to do with it. I have no interest in this conversation, though, about how it is good enough for the only other mainstream party in this country to be slightly better than a deranged cult. I'm not interested in that.